When I saw my daughter in a white dress on Facebook, standing beside a man I'd never met, smiling like the world belonged to her, I felt my chest cave in. It wasn't the kind of hurt that makes you scream. It was quieter, like someone slowly twisting a knife in a wound you didn't know was still open. I sat there on my living room couch, phone trembling in my hands, the evening light spilling through the curtains like nothing had happened. But something had. My daughter had gotten married, and she hadn't told me. For a few minutes, I couldn't even process it. I stared at the photos, one after another, each one more painful than the last. There she was, Amira, my only daughter. Her hair done up in soft curls, a lace gown that shimmered under the fairy lights, and beside her, a tall man in a gray suit, holding her hand like she was his entire world. I scrolled through the comments. "Congratulations, Amira. You look stunning. Such a beautiful couple. Even you two are perfect together. Perfect. No one seemed to notice my absence. No one asked where her mother was. Not a single person tagged me. I think I sat there for hours, just staring at that screen. The kettle whistled in the kitchen, but I didn't move. The call to prayer echoed faintly outside, but I didn't hear it properly. My heart was busy trying to stitch itself together while my mind kept tearing it apart again. How could she? After everything we'd been through. After every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every prayer whispered for her future, she chose to erase me from this moment. It had all started so differently. Amira had been my reason for surviving when life tried to break me. Her father, my ex-husband, left when she was barely 6. He said he needed freedom, whatever that meant. I worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. I remember those nights when Amira would fall asleep on the sofa while I sewed uniforms for other people's children. I'd carry her to bed and whisper, "One day, all this will be worth it." And for a while, it was. She was bright. Too bright, maybe. The kind of girl who always wanted more. When she got into university, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "Mama," she said, "I'll make you proud." And she did. Top of her class, always polite, always smiling, but somewhere along the way, something changed. It started small. Missed calls, short replies. "I'm busy, Mama. Can we talk later?" It's just been hectic. I tried not to take it personally. She was growing up, right? She had a life now, friends, maybe even a boyfriend. I told myself it was normal. Still, the distance grew. When she graduated, she invited me to the ceremony, but afterward, she disappeared for weeks. I'd text, "How are you, love?" She'd reply hours later, "Good, Mama, just busy." It was always that word, busy. I tried to understand. Maybe I was too protective. Maybe I hovered. I had no one else, really, just her. So when she bought her first house, a small one on the outskirts of the city, I was the proudest mother alive. She'd saved every penny, and I helped with what little I could. I even painted the living room walls myself, mint green, because she said it felt peaceful. That house became her safe place. And mine too, until the day she locked me out of it. It happened about a year before the wedding I never attended. We had an argument. Over something small at first, something about a man she was seeing. I don't even remember his name now. He was older, she said, mature, had his own business, but something in his smile unsettled me. I told her I didn't trust him, that she was rushing things. She snapped. "You never trust anyone, Mama. You just want me to stay your little girl forever." Her words cut deeper than I let her see. She left that night, slamming the door so hard the photo frame of her childhood birthday fell and cracked. We didn't talk for months. I tried to reach out, of course. Birthdays, holidays, even random days when I'd wake up missing her too much, but the silence stretched. Until that night, the night of the Facebook photos. I still remember how cold the room felt. I picked up my phone again, staring at the caption she'd written. "Forever begins with you. Forever? With him?" My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments, desperately looking for some mistake, some clue that this was just a photo shoot or a prank. But no. There were guests and efficient, flower arrangements. It was real. She had gotten married. Without me, I couldn't breathe. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady myself. It felt like I was being erased in real time, from her life, from her story, from the family we were supposed to be, and then a different kind of calm settled over me, the kind that comes when you realize something inside you has finally broken for good. I whispered to the empty room. So that's how it is, Amira. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually I stood up, went to the small cupboard in the hallway, and pulled out the old metal box where I kept every legal paper, every bill, every deed. Among them was one file, her house, the one she bought, the one I helped pay for. I ran my fingers over the title deed, the one still bearing both our names. My heart thudded quietly. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew I wasn't going to sit there and cry anymore. That night I didn't sleep. I made tea, paced the kitchen, replayed every conversation we'd ever had. The way she used to cling to my arm in crowded markets. The way she'd call me Mama Bear when she wanted something. The way she'd promise, "It'll always be you and me, no matter what." Those promises meant nothing now. By morning, I had made up my mind. If she wanted to start a new life without me, fine. But she wouldn't build that life in a house I helped her buy. I didn't act out of anger, not at first. The morning after seeing those photos, I just moved quietly. I made breakfast like always, 2 slices of toast, 1 egg. The tea tasted bitter, though I hadn't changed the sugar. I sat by the window and watched the sun rise, feeling like my life had split into before and after. After finishing my tea, I took out the house documents again. Her house, our house, technically. I'd co-signed the mortgage to help her qualify. I remember the day she got the keys, the joy in her eyes. I'd hugged her so tight she laughed and said, "Mama, you're going to crush me." Now, I looked at those same papers and felt something different. Resolve. I wasn't planning to sell it that day. Not yet. I told myself I just wanted to check the details, understand what I could and couldn't do. But when I held that file in my hands, I felt power again, a kind of quiet justice. Still, a part of me hoped she'd call. Maybe she'd text and say, "Mama, I'm sorry. I should have told you." Maybe she'd explain, cry, promise to make it right. But hours passed. Then a day. Then a week, nothing. I finally called her. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. I hung up, tried again later. Same thing. On the 3rd day, I sent a message. "Amira, I saw your wedding photos. I wish you'd told me yourself. I love you, but I'm very hurt." No reply. It's strange how silence can be louder than words. Every ping from my phone made my heart leap, and every time it wasn't her, it broke a little more. After a few days, I noticed something odd. I went on Facebook again and realized her profile wasn't visible anymore. Not blocked exactly, just restricted. I couldn't see her posts, only her profile picture. She had hidden her life from me. That's when the suspicion began to grow. Maybe it wasn't just me she was avoiding. Maybe there was more to her marriage than I knew. One afternoon, I decided to drive by her house. I told myself it was just to check if she was okay. But really, I needed to see with my own eyes what her life looked like now. It was late evening when I reached. The sun was dipping low, casting that golden light that makes everything look softer than it really is. Her house looked the same from the outside. The same mint green walls I had painted. The same rose bush near the porch. But there was a new car in the driveway. A sleek black one I didn't recognize. And through the window I saw movement. A man's figure. Broad shoulders. The husband, I assumed. Then I saw Amira. She walked into view carrying a tray of tea. She was laughing. Laughing like the world had never heard her. I sat in my car, hidden behind the steering wheel, watching them. It wasn't right, I know, but I couldn't help it. The woman in that house didn't look like my daughter. She looked like someone who had cut her past clean away. After a while, I drove off. I didn't cry this time. I just felt empty. A few days later, I went to the local property office. I told them I wanted to update some ownership details for my joint property with my daughter. The clerk nodded and asked for identification. I handed it over, heart pounding. When I signed the first form, I hesitated. Was I really doing this? Then I thought about those photos again. The white dress, the happy smiles, the strangers congratulating her while I sat alone in silence. And I signed. It wasn't the sale contract yet, just paperwork to confirm I was still legally a co-owner. But that moment, pen on paper, felt symbolic, like reclaiming something she'd taken from me. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Every creak in the house made me think of footsteps. Every shadow looked like regret. I got up and walked through my small apartment, touching the things that were mine. The framed photos, the embroidered cushions, the old armchair by the window. This was my life now. Small, quiet, and half empty. But it didn't have to stay that way. A week later, fate intervened. I was at the market buying vegetables when I heard someone call my name. "Miss Shahnaz? Is that you?" I turned. It was Rihanna, my old neighbor from when Amira was a child. She gave me a big hug. "It's been ages. I saw Amira the other day. Such a lovely bride." My stomach tightened. "You saw her?" "Yes, at the salon where my niece works. She came in with her husband. Oh, such a handsome man. Though a little distant, maybe." Didn't say much. I forced a smile. "Yes, that sounds like him." Rihanna leaned closer. "But, she looked tired, you know? The kind of tired that makeup can't hide." I thought maybe it was wedding stress. Her words lingered in my mind long after she left. Tired. Maybe this marriage wasn't as perfect as the pictures showed. That night, I found myself scrolling through the husband's profile instead. His name was Adil Khan. His account was mostly business stuff. Cars, property listings, motivational quotes. But then, tucked between those posts, I saw something that made my heart skip. A photo of him standing in front of Amira's house. But with the caption, "Our first investment property. Proud moment." Investment property? I stared at it for a long time. My daughter's home, our home, was listed as his investment. My throat went dry. Did he mean he owned it? Did Amira know what he was doing? It didn't add up. The more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. The next day, I went back to the property office, pretending to ask for some documents. I casually asked if there were any recent inquiries about the house. The man checked his computer and said, "Yes, ma'am. Someone submitted a valuation request last month, Mr. Adil Khan." I felt cold all over. He was valuing her house. Or rather, our house. That's when it clicked. Maybe this marriage wasn't just built on love. Maybe it was built on convenience and money. And if that was true, then my daughter wasn't just distant. She was in danger of losing everything, including the roof over her head. I went home that night and sat at my desk, staring at the deed again. The papers that tied us together. Then I picked up my phone and whispered, "Amira, what have you done?" But this time I wasn't asking as a mother. I was asking as the other owner of that house, one who was about to make a decision her daughter would never forget. The next morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my chest that refused to go away. It was that quiet, uneasy weight that comes when your heart knows something your mind is still trying to deny. I made myself tea, but it went cold before I could finish it. Every few minutes, I'd pick up my phone and open Amira's chat. Blank. No replies. No new messages. The last words I'd sent her. "I saw your wedding photos," stared back at me like an open wound. I told myself I needed clarity. That's what I called it, clarity. But deep down, I knew what I really wanted. Truth. Even if it hurt. I went back to her neighborhood that afternoon. This time, I didn't stay in the car. I parked 2 streets away and walked slowly toward the mint green house. The gate was slightly open. I could hear voices inside, a man's and a woman's. I recognized hers instantly. "I told you, I can't just sell it without her signature," she was saying, her voice low but tense. "Sell it?" I froze near the gate, the sound of my heartbeat louder than their words. The man, Adil, I assumed, replied sharply, "Then convince her. You said she's sentimental. Tell her you need money for renovations or something. We can't move forward until the papers are clean." My hands trembled. Papers. Clean. He wanted her to convince me to sell the house. Took a deep breath and peeked through the narrow crack in the gate. Amira stood near the porch, her arms crossed, eyes glistening. She looked thinner than before, her shoulders slumped. Adil stood facing her, his expression cold. "I didn't marry you to argue about property," he said. "You promised we'd build something together. Her voice cracked. I did, but not by cheating my mother. That word, cheating, hit me like thunder. He stepped closer, his tone softening but dangerous. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Amira. Once the house is sold, we'll have capital. We can buy a bigger one. Start fresh. She looked away. It's not about the house. It's about what it means. She helped me buy it. She worked her whole life for me. I can't. Enough, he snapped, cutting her off. I couldn't listen anymore. My hands were shaking so badly I had to grab the fence for balance. So that was it. The reason she'd hidden her marriage. The silence. The distance. It wasn't just shame or rebellion. It was because she knew. She knew this man had plans, and she was caught in them. I stepped back quietly and left before they could see me. My vision blurred as I walked down the street. The air felt heavy, the kind that sits on your skin like guilt. By the time I got home, I was trembling. Not with sadness this time, but anger. A cold, righteous anger that had nowhere to go. For years, I'd given that girl everything. I'd carried her, protected her, built a home so she'd never have to feel what I felt when her father left. And now she was letting someone else use her to take it all away. No, I couldn't let that happen. I sat at my desk, pulled the file out again, and stared at the title deed. Her name, my name, equal owners. But I knew what Adil wanted, to erase mine. I opened my laptop and searched property laws, reading everything I could. By midnight, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next day, I went to a real estate agent, a woman named Farzana, sharp, efficient, polite. I want to sell a property, I said. She smiled. Is it solely in your name? Joint, I said quietly. With my daughter, she paused. Then you'll need both signatures, I nodded. Eventually, Farzana hesitated. Forgive me, but does she know? I met her eyes. Not yet, and I'd prefer to keep it that way for now. Something in my tone must have told her not to ask more. She simply said, understood. I can start the valuation today. When I left her office, a strange calmness filled me, the kind that comes when pain finally finds a purpose. That night, I tried calling Amira again. I wanted to give her one last chance to tell me the truth. She answered this time. Mama? Her voice sounded small, cautious. I saw your husband, I said quietly, and I know about the house. Silence. Mama, please. No, I interrupted. Don't lie to me anymore. He's trying to sell it, isn't he? She exhaled shakily. He just thinks it would be a good investment. He says we can buy a bigger place, live more comfortably. I could hear the tears in her voice. Does he know how much of that house came from me? From your childhood savings? From the nights I stayed up sewing until my fingers bled? Mama, please don't make this harder. Harder? My voice rose despite me. He's using you, Amira. Can't you see that? She was quiet for a long time. Then softly, maybe he is. But it's my mistake to fix. I felt my heart crack in two. So you'll let him take everything? I don't want to lose him, Mama. Her words echoed through me like an echo down a long, empty corridor. I swallowed hard. Then you'll lose me. I hung up before she could answer. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. The kind of cry that shakes your bones. I wasn't crying just for her. I was crying for the mother I had been, for the love that had been turned into weakness. When the tears stopped, I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and whispered to the dark. Fine. Amira, if you won't protect what's yours, I will. The next morning, I called Farzana again. List it, I said. The house. I'm ready. A week later, the first offer came in. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to end the chapter. When the papers were ready, I signed my part and left the other signature blank. Then, instead of sending them to Amira, I sent them directly to her husband, with a short message attached. Tell Amira the house she betrayed me for is gone. Maybe now she'll understand what loss really feels like. I pressed send before I could think twice. And just like that, everything that tied us together began to unravel. When I sent that message, my hands were steady. My heart wasn't. For the first few hours, I felt nothing. I made tea, washed the dishes, folded laundry, all in silence, as if I could outrun the reality of what I'd just done. But beneath that calm surface, my mind was replaying every moment with Amira. Her first steps, her first heartbreak, her laughter in that house we built together. And now it was gone. I'd told myself it was justice, a lesson. But as night fell, the silence in my home began to hum with something heavier. Guilt. Maybe I'd gone too far. Then, around midnight, my phone rang. It was her. I hesitated before answering, my pulse quickening. Hello? Her voice came through, shaky and breathless. Mama, what did you do? I closed my eyes. What I had to. You sold my house? She cried. Without even talking to me? I kept my voice even. You stopped talking to me long before that. Mama, please. That house was all I had left. Adil, he's furious. He said you had no right. I cut her off. No right? Tell him to read the deed. My name's right there next to yours. She was sobbing now. You've made things worse. You don't understand what he's like when he's angry. That last line hit me hard. What he's like when he's angry. What does that mean, Amira? I asked, my tone sharpening. She didn't answer at first. I could hear muffled sounds, her trying to compose herself, maybe looking over her shoulder. Amira, I said firmly, is he hurting you? A long pause. Then, in a trembling whisper, sometimes. The word cut straight through me. All that anger I'd built up, all that righteous justification. It melted away in an instant, replaced by a cold, sharp fear. What do you mean sometimes? I demanded. He just gets angry easily, she said, her voice breaking, especially about money. I thought once we sold the house, he'd calm down, but I could hear movement on her end, a door slamming. Her voice dropped. I can't talk right now. Please, Mama, don't call me. He doesn't like it when I... The line went dead. I sat there frozen, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the emptiness. That was the moment I realized the truth. My daughter wasn't my enemy. She was a prisoner in her own marriage, and I'd just taken away the one safe place she had left. Sleep was impossible that night. My mind wouldn't stop. Every sound from the street made me flinch. I kept replaying her voice, the tremble in it, the fear she tried to hide. By dawn, I had made up my mind again. This time, not out of revenge, but out of protection. If Adil thought he could use my daughter and walk away unscathed, he was wrong. I started by finding out everything I could about him. His company, his business deals, his reputation. It wasn't hard. Men like him love to show off. On his social media, he posted about smart investments and high returns. But beneath the surface, the cracks were visible. Several angry comments on his posts hinted at failed projects. Someone even accused him of fraud. I took screenshots of everything. Then I printed out the messages, the property listings, the sale documents. Piece by piece, I built a file. Not for myself this time, but for her. By the end of the week, I knew exactly what kind of man he was. He'd been using her name, her savings, her property to fund his failing ventures. The house wasn't just a symbol of home. It was collateral, and I had unknowingly just disrupted his entire plan. That evening, I went to her house again. The gate was locked this time, curtains drawn, no lights on inside. I stood there clutching that file, wondering if I should knock. But before I could decide, the door opened. Amira stepped out, eyes red, face pale. When she saw me, she froze. "Mama," she whispered. I walked up to her slowly. "Are you alone?" She looked over her shoulder nervously, then nodded. "He left for a meeting." "Good." I handed her the folder. "You need to see this," she frowned, taking it from me. "What is it?" "Proof," I said quietly, "of who your husband really is." She glanced at the papers inside, flipping through them quickly. I could see the realization sinking in with each page. Her lips trembled. He used my name on loan papers?" "Yes," I said. "He planned to sell the house, take the money, and walk away clean. And you'd be left paying for it all." Tears welled in her eyes. "Mama, I didn't know." "I know," I whispered, touching her arm. "That's why I sold it before he could." She looked up at me, her face breaking into a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. You saved me? I nodded. In the only way I knew how. She sobbed then, the kind of deep, shaking sob that comes when the weight of everything finally hits. I held her, just like I did when she was a child, her head against my shoulder, my hand running through her hair. I'm sorry, Mama, she cried. I should have listened. I thought he loved me, I sighed. We all make that mistake once, my love. But our moment didn't last long. A car engine roared outside. Adil Amira tensed instantly. He's back. I turned toward the gate as it opened. He stepped out. Tall, composed, pretending confidence, but I saw the flicker in his eyes when he spotted me. Well, he said coolly. The famous mother-in-law. Mr. Khan, I said evenly. We were just discussing your business practices. He smirked. You mean you're meddling? Amira's voice shook. Adil, please. He ignored her and stepped closer to me. You had no right to sell that house. I had every right, I replied. My name was on it. He laughed under his breath. Do you know how much money you've cost me? I met his gaze without flinching. Every rupee was worth it. His jaw tightened. You think this is over? I took a step closer, my voice calm but sharp as glass. Oh, it's far from over. Because now everyone you owe will know exactly who you are. A man who builds his empire on lies and his wife's pain. His smirk faltered. I handed him a copy of the file I'd prepared. Consider this my final payment. And then without another word, I took my daughter's hand and walked past him, out the gate, into the fading light. She stayed with me that night. Silent, shaken but safe. For the first time in months, I slept soundly. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd finally done something that mattered. By the next morning, everything had changed. Amira sat at my kitchen table, still in the same clothes from the night before. She looked like a ghost of herself. Eyes swollen, hair unkempt, fingers fidgeting around her teacup. The steam rose and disappeared before she ever took a sip. Does he know where you are? I asked quietly. She shook her head. He tried calling, but I blocked him. Her voice trembled. He'll be furious, Mama. You don't know what he's capable of. I looked at her and saw the little girl she used to be, hiding behind me when thunder scared her. I reached out and held her hand. He can't hurt you anymore, Amira. Not while I'm here. But I knew it wasn't that simple. Men like Adil didn't let go easily, especially when their pride and money were both at stake. That afternoon, the calls began. Unknown numbers, one after another. I didn't answer. Then came a message, short, venomous. You'll regret this. I deleted it, but the words burned in my mind. Amira saw my expression and whispered, It's him, isn't it? I nodded. Let him talk. But what I didn't tell her was that I already had a plan, one that would make sure his threats meant nothing. 2 days later, I went to the same real estate office carrying my file. Farzana, the agent, looked startled when she saw me. Miss Shanaz, she said softly. I heard from a colleague. Your son-in-law came here asking questions. He seemed angry. I smiled thinly. That's one word for it. I handed her another envelope. Please deliver these copies to the people on this list, and make sure a copy goes to the property board. I want everything transparent. Inside that envelope were all the documents, the proof of Adil's fraud, the messages, the screenshots, and a signed statement from me confirming why I'd sold the property. I wanted the truth to live somewhere beyond just my words. Farzana hesitated. Are you sure you want to make this public? Yes, I said firmly. He built his reputation on lies. Let him lose it the same way. It didn't take long. Within a week, rumors started spreading. First among the realtors, then among clients. Adil Khan, the so-called investment genius, was being accused of using forged signatures and spousal assets to fund his failing deals. One of his former partners even filed a police report after my documents reached him. It was like watching a tower collapse, slowly, brick by brick. Amira didn't leave the house for days. The fear of him showing up haunted her. But eventually something changed. She began to walk with her head a little higher. She started eating again. She even smiled once or twice, though the sadness still lingered behind her eyes. Then one morning, she got a message. Not from him, but from one of his associates. "He's been arrested for financial fraud. I'm sorry, Amira. You didn't deserve this." She read it out loud, her voice barely above a whisper. For a long moment, she just sat there, staring at the screen. Then she began to cry, not the kind of tears that come from pain, but from relief. I went to her and wrapped my arms around her shoulders. "It's over now, my love." Through her tears, she murmured, "You saved me again, Mama." The next few weeks were quiet, peaceful even. Amira found a small job at a local design studio, helping with interior projects. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave her purpose. She'd leave in the morning with a thermos of chai and come home tired but content. We didn't talk much about a deal after that. Some wounds are best left to heal in silence. But every now and then, I'd catch her looking at old photos, her wedding day, her house, the smile she once had, and she'd sigh softly. Not with regret, but with understanding. One evening, as we sat together, watching the sunset through the window, she said quietly, "Mama, I used to think you were controlling, that you wanted to run my life. But now I see you were trying to save me before I even knew I needed saving." I smiled faintly. A mother never stops trying, Amira, even when her children stop listening. She reached for my hand. "Do you forgive me?" I looked at her for a long moment, then squeezed her fingers gently. "There's nothing to forgive. You're my daughter. That's all that matters. But life has a strange way of bringing closure when you least expect it." A few months later, a letter arrived, official and heavy. It was from Adil's lawyer. Inside was a single-page document, stating that all joint debts under Amira's name had been cleared. Attached was a short note in his handwriting. "Tell your mother she won. Maybe it's better this way." Amira stared at the paper for a long time, then handed it to me. "What do you think it means?" I folded it neatly and placed it aside. "It means the chapter is closed." And just like that, it was. The story of what happened spread quietly through our community. People whispered, as they always do. Some pitied her, some judged, but most admired the way she carried herself. Dignified, calm, never bitter. One of our neighbors even said to me once, "You must be proud of her. She's strong," and I smiled softly. Yes, she finally is. A year later, Amira bought a new house. Smaller than the last, but filled with light. She decorated it herself. Soft beige curtains, framed art, plants by the window. When she invited me to stay the first night, I hesitated at the door, remembering everything we'd lost and everything we'd survived. She looked at me and said, "This time, Mama, it's truly our home." I stepped inside, took a deep breath and smiled. The walls smelled faintly of fresh paint and jasmine. For the first time in a long while, the air around us felt light again. That night, as we sat together on the balcony sipping tea, the city lights twinkling in the distance, she said quietly, "Do you ever regret selling it?" I looked at her, my daughter who had once been a stranger, now sitting beside me like a friend. "No," I said softly, "because some things must be broken for the truth to come out. And sometimes letting go is the only way to save what's left." She nodded, resting her head on my shoulder. And for the first time since that fateful night, I felt peace settle over me, gentle, steady, final. Sometimes when I look back, I still see that photo. My daughter in her wedding dress, smiling as if the whole world belonged to her. And I remember the ache in my chest when I realized I hadn't been there to see it happen. But pain has a way of teaching us things that peace never can. I learned that love doesn't always mean silence, that protecting someone doesn't always look gentle. Sometimes it looks like selling a house you built with your own hands, just to free the person you love most from a cage they can't even see. Amira and I, we're not the same women we were before. She learned what trust really means. I learned what letting go truly costs. And even though there are still cracks between us, invisible, quiet ones, they remind me that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without bitterness. If I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing, because that house wasn't her future. It was her prison. And sometimes, a mother's love must burn a bridge to save her child from crossing it. Now, when Amira laughs, really laughs, I feel something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. And I tell myself, maybe that's what motherhood really is. The courage to be misunderstood until the truth comes home. What about you? If your child chose pain and called it love, would you still protect them? Would you still be strong enough to let them fall, just to help them rise again? Tell me in the comments, my dears. And if you believe that sometimes love means letting go, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us that even in heartbreak, there's healing.